Darren Hutchins, OBrien Real Estate, corporate. I'm a corporate director of OBrien Real Estate.
And how did you get into real estate?
Kevin Biggin from Biggin Scott. He was one of our clients and a good friend of my father. So basically went and had a chat to Kevin one day up in Paran. I lived in Berwick, and Kevin's advice was, you're going to drive in on this freeway and within 3 months you'll be out of the industry. So his advice was find someone local, find a good office, an office where people can grow, and that I did. So had a fella come around to do an appraisal on my home, and that guy is now my business partner, Dean O'Brien. So basically came around to do an appraisal at 5 o'clock at night and left at midnight and cleaned my fridge out. So, and then he came back a couple of days later and did the same thing again. So,
and you're still business partners?
We are, yeah, we're good mates and business partners. So.
Tell us about your business. I mean, it's had rapid expansion over the last few years. What's the progression there?
So Dean and I opened an office in 2010 in Berwick, so out of southeast suburbs of Melbourne. We were a little bit jaded. We're at a point where we thought we just need to do something a little bit different, a little bit unique, and we were probably in an office where old director, and he probably didn't give us the love that we needed as salespeople. We're both high-producing salespeople, so we opened up OBrien Real Estate. So it's now coming up 8 years, and we've got 26 offices, and I think the whole thing's been built around a culture, a great culture, a set of values, and doing the right thing by the team. So, we're always there, we're always accessible to the guys, and Dean does a lot of training in-house with the team, and opens it up to other offices as well. And I tend to get around and do what I can to keep the culture on check, but it's been good. It's been really good.
Now, I talk to successful people like yourself in the real estate industry, and you make it all sound so simple, but I'm sure there's been tough times. How do you keep going over those 8 years when you're in the trenches, so to speak?
Well, it's been 15 years. So,
15 years.
Yeah, 15 years. Look, it's you've just got to keep. You've just got to keep going. It's what you do. It's what you love. I mean, some people get up in the morning and they say, well, I'm going to work. We don't look at it as work. I've never looked at it as a job. It's what I do. It's what I love. So, it's such a diverse industry, and even I have so many people say, well, what can I do in real estate? You've got property management. There's administration. There's sales. There's just so many different variables within the industry. If you love what you do, it's pretty easy to get out of bed. And at the moment, it's a little bit tighter than it has been, but again, I've seen a few of these. The guys that haven't been through the bit of a downturn, and I'm not saying it's a downturn as such. It's just tightened up. The market's tightened up. We're not seeing as many buyers out there, so the ones that haven't seen this, it's going to be a bit of a shock for them.
Test. Bit of a test.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. How much importance, and maybe in a tighter market, is vendor-paid advertising?
Oh, huge, crucial. I think at the end of the day, and one of the things I learned very early in my career was the importance of print media, digital media. Probably not so much digital back when I first started. I mean, it's always been there. Don't get me wrong, and the internet's grown, and it's such a big tool. But I think I've looked at our businesses and what we've been able to achieve in the early days back at Noel Jones to opening OBrien. We've had a great relationship with News Limited. We're in a paper that was in competition to News Limited or the Leader, the Berwick Leader at the time, and we actually had the boys, Andrew Martin and Jason Budford, come out, and we said, guys, we need some competition here. So they rolled up the sleeves. We supported them heavily. We were constantly 12 to 14 pages a week in that publication. There were 3 offices locally that were behind that, and it was a massive part of our business. So instead of being a big fish in an even bigger sea, we're a big fish in a very small sea with a leader back then. We then had an approach again from Andrew and Jason to get behind the Herald Sun, the Saturday Herald Sun. At the time, it was fledging. It really hadn't had a great deal of support. I think now, if you look at it, it's probably as good. I know from a reach and frequency point of view, or more so from a reach point of view, it's just such a massive amount of reach into that Melbourne market. I think it hits roughly about 1 million people on a Saturday. When you look at the competitor which charge considerably more, have about a third of the reach. So it's been a big part of our business.
And it's working. Do you have any good case studies? I'm putting you on the spot here, but any examples of how, I guess, a combination of print plus digital, because News Corp and realestate.com.au both firmly believe that the combination is much more powerful than in isolation.
We noticed some time ago, because we track numbers. Numbers don't lie at the end of the day. So both Ted and I noticed some time ago the difference between an open purely with internet to the difference between internet and print. It was just significant. It was so many more people come through, and I think if you look at Tom Panos preaches and has preached for a long time. It's not about the first buyer that comes through. And one thing that I hate as a principal and as an agent is the rah-rah that goes on in real estate about I sold my house in an hour, or I sold this house in an hour. It's not about the first buyer, it's about getting the best buyer there. And I see so many homes, in my opinion, that are undersold because the agents are just so focused on a quick sale and move on, next. So, the importance of both forms of publication is crucial.
Terrific. Well, it's been fantastic to have your insight,
thank you.
Darren.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
No, it's terrific. And thanks for joining us, Sky News Real Estate.
Thank you.
See you again soon.
Cheers. Thank you.